I never thought I'd be at this stage so quickly. I thought it was going to take long. I thought I was going to have to learn how to code. I was not going to understand the fundamentals of the industry. But the fact that now we're already going through testing and we're about to launch and we've got clients and we're already working on it is really like it really blew my mind.
Welcome to the Tech for Non-Techies podcast. I'm your host, tech entrepreneur, executive coach, and Chicago Booth MBA, Sophia Matveeva. My aim here is to help you have a great career in the digital age. In a time when even your coffee shop has an app, you simply have to speak tech. On this podcast, I share core technology concepts, help you relate them to business outcomes, and most importantly, share practical advice on what you can do to become a digital leader today. If you want to have a great career in the digital age, this podcast is for you. Hello, smart people. How are you today? I am freezing in London and honestly wish I was under the glorious South African sun instead. And you just heard the voice of one of my clients who is based in Johannesburg. Lucky him, he is warm. Musi Skosana is the CEO of an asset management business, which has about $1 billion in assets under management. And he set up this fund himself after a career in banking. So he is a very successful guy. And he is successful in a traditional industry, in investing. And as some of you know, I used to work in a private equity firm, so I'm familiar with that world. And in this episode, Musi shared why he decided to invest in digitisation at his fund and why he also decided to increase his skill set as an individual. And there are lots of articles on digital transformation and how to get it right to the corporate level. And that's where McKinsey and IBM and so on, where they make millions. But I think that any big change can only be successful if the individuals in the organization are also enthusiastic and knowledgeable about it, especially the leadership, because that's really where the change comes from. Structural change without individual change simply does not work, which is why I wanted to share Musi's perspective with you today, because you'll learn both how a fund management CEO thinks and how an ambitious professional thinks. And at least one of these is going to apply to you. And if your company is going through digitization, or if you want to work with tech clients or with clients that have gone through digitization like Musi's fund, then get in touch and let's talk about how our training programs can help you. And now let's learn from the wonderful Musi Skosana.
Hi, Musi. So my first question to you is, why did you join Tech for Non-Techies and what was happening in your business at the time?
So the digitization, look, we're an asset management firm, and so we are very much dialed into global markets, and we invest in a lot of technology companies. And the one thing that had always been on the back of my mind as a business is the fact that we are going to have to digitize whether we like it or not, and that you're not going to survive. You're not going to be around in 10 to 15 years if you haven't digitized. So it was a big solve that we were basically looking for. Number one. Number two, our clients as well had started getting tired of the analog processes of opening an account, closing an account, withdrawing money, depositing money. And hence we needed to digitize accordingly. And so hence that's why I wanted to actually equip myself with the necessary tools in order to be able to understand how to build an app and basically digitize myself. But the problem is that the perceptions are that there's always, you have to know how to code, etc., etc. And I did not know how to code. And even though I did try, it wasn't really doing well for me. So hence, I wanted another way. And one of the other options was going to another university, but then I came across Tech for Non-Techies. And hence, that's why I was like, okay, let me have a look at this option. And it seemed as if it was really a good course. And hence, I tried it.
Awesome. Thank you. And am I right in thinking that it was actually your friend, Nasi, who was one of my earliest students who actually introduced you to Tech for Non-Techies?
Yes, correct. So Nasi had posted it, the interaction between yourselves and him, and hence that's what actually got a Tech for Non-Techies on my radar, and going through your profile on LinkedIn and following the videos and going through the history of Tech Non-Techies, I basically thought, this sounds more practical than rather having to go to an institution such as like an Oxford or Harvard and trying to get that before coming to you. Yours sounds more practical. And I think we're now at that age where education is also being disrupted. And it was a difficult mindset shift to have to go say, okay, you don't need to go to Oxford in order to get these tools,
Hmm.
which is something that I'd still had to overcome.
Hmm. Well, incidentally, I have actually taught at Oxford, so
Yes, I
um,
know.
okay. So, what has been the biggest breakthrough that you've experienced while you've been working with me?
It's mindset shift, right? So, firstly, having to understand that you can get the critical skills without having to actually go to a specific established historical institutions such as Oxford or Chicago, Booth, any of those institutions or Harvard, in order for to be able to get the critical IT skills. That's really been a major shift, and I think that's just happening across. That's what IT or tech is basically disrupting all over, and no one knows actually where it's going to land. But there is a disruption. So hence, that was the first mindset shift. The second mindset shift was the fact of how you approach the tech industry in terms of the thinking, as opposed to it's a continuous improvement model, a circular model, as opposed to having one idea and implementation, and all you're trying to reach for is perfection. It's more about being adaptive and consistently adapting accordingly. I think that was also a major shift, a mindset shift from my end, because when you go through the schooling, like we all do, it's either you get something wrong or right. There's never you can get it half right or half wrong, and hence you can always improve yourself. It's either you're in or out. Whereas with technology, you can always improve, and that's really the big mindset shift that I got. And thirdly, I didn't need to know how to code in order for me to be able to understand the fundamentals of technology space, how the business model works, and what are the crucial things to get right.
You know, it's interesting you say that because when I got into tech, that was actually, these things were exactly the things that were the biggest surprises for me. And the reason why I think we basically have the same ones is because we have a very similar professional background. So, you know, big companies, I also worked in a private equity firm. And so you get trained in one particular way of thinking. And then when you get into tech, you then try to apply that way of thinking. It basically doesn't work. And so that's it. My mission to basically go back to where I came from and say, people, things are different in this weird new digital land. Okay. And
Yeah.
so how would you describe tech for non-techies to somebody else?
Tech for Non-Techies is a practical program that basically teaches you the fundamentals of tech and the technology space and the mode in which you should be thinking or considering tech in, as opposed to, and also just how you should approach problems in the technology space. And that's how I would want to describe it to anyone who's new into the technology space. And also, I'd say to them, if they want the shortcuts, if there's ever a shortcut, this would be it, right? With someone who's got an MBA from Chicago Booth, who's got a very good background, has been in startups herself. I think this is the best candidate to actually listen to.
Awesome one. Thank you very much. And finally, if what would you say to somebody who has been, listening to my podcast, watching my videos, consuming all the content, and they've been thinking, well, should I do this? Should I not? Should I join Tech for Non-Techies or should I not? What would you say to somebody sitting on the fence?
I would say to them, I understand your apprehension because of the fact that it's not within a specific institution you that you definitely put your money down for, right? But you need to be able to think that the biggest ideas are always outside of what is mainstream. And technology space right now is still not mainstream, even though there's a lot of talks and thinking about it and videos. It's still not mainstream, and I think this is really a really good calculated bet in order for you to get into the space. So I would try and convince you to try and get into tech for non-techies, because even if you are going to progress further, this would be a great starter for you to be able to have a lay of the land and understand what's important and what's not. And then from here on, you can then, if you want to still go to a traditional institution, you can still go on. But the big thing here is that you're learning all of the fundamentals, and you're learning how to think in a specific way that is suited for the technology space.
Awesome, thank you. And I love that you used calculated bet, like the true financier that you are. Well, thank you so much. We'll see.
Sure.
It's been a pleasure to have you part of the program. And I love the fact that when we started working together, you were right at the beginning of your journey. And your app, your company's app, has just hit Google Play.
Yeah. So for me, it's like it's a big thing, right? I never thought I'd be at this stage so quickly. I thought it was going to take long. I thought I was going to have to learn how to code. I was not going to understand the fundamentals of the industry. But the fact that now we're already going through testing and we're about to launch and we've got clients and we're already working on it, is really like yeah, it really blew my mind. And thanks to Tech for Non-Techies, because it made it seem like, okay, fine, it's not for individuals who've done computer science. It's actually approachable for everyone, and you can access it yourself. Yeah.
And you've done it in 9 months. So, some people make babies in 9 months. You have created a whole new fintech business for your asset management company in less than a
Yeah.
year. It's remarkable. I'm so excited about what's going to happen next.
Thank you very much.
Isn't that cool? You can do a lot in less than a year if you're smart about it. And if you want what Musi is having, then get in touch via the link in the show notes or just go to techfornontechies.co and book a consultation call there. On that note, have a wonderful day, and I shall be back in your delightful smart ears next week. Ciao!